Hello, guys, and welcome back to another draft podcast with Draftday 101. And today we're going to go over the first 8 picks, which are the Texans, the Rams, Jaguars, Browns, Raiders, the Tampa Bay Bucks, and Minnesota Vikings. We'll be going over their top 3 needs, and Draft Day will be going over on what are they trending on, who are they going to pick, and what he thinks they should go with, what fits their team needs. And so let's start it off with the number 1 overall pick. Houston Texans are on the clock, and what are their 3 biggest needs on this team?
Obviously, their biggest needs are quarterback, still need a right tackle, and I'd probably say they need help in the back end period because their need at corner and safety, they both tie into each other. They could get either or, but either doesn't really value as much as the other one. But yeah, I know Romeo Crennel, he kind of values a little bit the corners a little bit more so than he does for safeties. But I understand if they was to go safety in that way because it's definitely a deeper safety class than most years. And that's pretty much the 3 needs that they're going to go for at this point.
And do you think they have? Is there an underrated need they have? Is there? You think we see teams sometimes they draft a wide receiver when they really didn't need wide receiver help, or they what's a wild card position do you think would be for the Texans?
The Texans' wild card position would probably be their tight end. They didn't get as much help with the tight ends. Matt Schaub threw a lot of interceptions, so we didn't really get to see the talents of the entire tight end group or receiving group in period. That offense looked really bad this year. But I think that a tight end could be a possible need down the line. It's probably not one of the first tier needs, but Owen Daniels hasn't really been that tight end the last few years that I kind of wanted. They also need help at nose tackle. And right now, backup running back also. Down the line, we're talking maybe 6th, 7th round, 5th round. They could definitely use for another running back because Arian Foster, he's good and all. He's going to miss games here and there like a lot of running backs, but Ben Tate's not going to probably, is unlikely to probably sign back with them. So a running back is also a need, but nose tackles probably, out of all the underrated ones that I mentioned, is probably the one because Terrell McClain, he's all right, but he's not really a starter that much.
Right, and also in news of tight end, I've saw that Garrett Graham, their tight end who played last year because Owen Daniels was hurt, is in his contract year, and there are some teams. I've heard Green Bay Packers, and I've heard the Patriots are after him during this free agency. So, he may leave or he may stay. But now let's get into the pick. Who do you think are they going with, or who do you think? What is their trend? What do you think the Texans are trending to drafting?
Right now, it's a little early, of course.
Yeah.
It's still March. It's not even April yet. The boards haven't been put out. But the based on what they did was because the whole offensive staff, I think this week attended Jimmy Garoppolo's
Pro day.
The pro day. That tells you something that there's some interest there in Jimmy Garoppolo. So I'm not going to just say immediately Blake Bortles and whatnot because there's obviously 10. If there was just Blake Bortles, period, they wouldn't be going out and looking at Jimmy Garoppolo. There's a little bit more interest in Jadeveon Clowney with the number 1 pick if they end up with that. And I think it would be a beneficial pick. Of course, Matt Schaub, I expect them to let go of him, but Jimmy Garoppolo might sit behind a guy like maybe Matt Castle. Matt Castle played played under Bill O'Brien before in New England, as you remember.
Right.
You have maybe perhaps a Matt Castle taken for a year, and then you maybe have Jimmy Garoppolo, be tutored under behind him. Because the Texans, they're probably a year or 2 away from being really legitimately even a Super Bowl contender. They're not just a playoff team. But once that Super Bowl contender, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is that quarterback that gets him to that next step. If you want to maybe make the jump, but what I think that they'll end up doing is they're going to end up going with Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles is more so the trend right now. It seems likely. they have a lot of offensive staff that's very familiar with him, and it's kind of like what Miami was with Ryan Tannehill with
Sherman.
Sherman. I can't even say his last name.
He was
Sherman.
Yeah, he was the I think offensive coordinator or head coach at A&M, and he became the
He was the head coach at A&M.
Yeah.
And then he became the offensive coordinator at Green Bay. They had a lot of ties with him. It made the job a little bit easier for
Tannehill. Yeah, so he can,
because he already knew the offensive system. Bill O'Brien doesn't run the exact same thing as what Blake Bortles ran at UCF, but there's going to be certain things that he understands, and they have some coaches there, I believe, from UCF that are in the Houston Texans.
Yeah, the QB coach. Right, I think the QB coach from UCF is actually the QB coach / offensive coordinator. I mean, Bill O'Brien hasn't came out who's calling the plays, and
it's probably going to be Bill O'Brien because Bill O'Brien did that even at Penn State. That's what he does best. He's going to have him as the play caller on offense, Romeo Crennel on defense.
But he doesn't have a definitive offensive coordinator. He does.
No, he doesn't have an offensive coordinator because he plans on doing it himself.
Yeah.
I've read reports that he's willing to do it himself, and I think that's the right move. That's what he does best. Don't take away what you do best. He calls good plays. He should continue to call good plays.
Yeah, so I believe that's what I feel like they're trending to is Blake Bortles. But
I could also see a scenario. It's really 50-50 right now because I could see a scenario where Jadeveon Clowney, there's no smoke screen. They really do like Jadeveon Clowney, but are you really willing to pass up that quarterback position to add pass rusher? You know?
Right.
It's the age-old question, need versus best player available. Certain teams go with the need. Certain teams go with the best player available. And right now the need is greatly. Don't. We can't act like pass rush is not another need because Whitney Merciless kind of didn't live up to what we have expected him up to this point. The same with Brooks Reed and J.J. Watt's pretty much been the only pass rusher out of that whole group.
Right,
and so, you're not going to win this division. In my thinking. That's the reason why I have Jadeveon Clowney as my guy. Is you're not gonna you gotta win. The way you're gonna have to make the playoffs consistently is winning that division, and you're not gonna win that division by trying to outscore the Indianapolis Colts. That division goes to the Indianapolis Colts. They have Andrew Luck. The best way to beat the Indianapolis Colts is by hitting Andrew Luck, and you would be able to hit him a lot of times with J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney. And you would have, and people who are concerned about his motor and maybe how he's gonna have a lot of supporting cast out there that's gonna get him fired up. And if he can't work in Houston, he's probably not gonna work anywhere because you have guys out there on the Houston Texans teams like Brian Cushings and J.J. Watt, guys who go 100 all the time that are gonna end up helping this young man transition to the National Football League.
And you made this, we were talking off on the last podcast, and you made this very good comparison. I think it's going to be, you compared it to Justin Smith and Aldon Smith, how they pass rush at the 49ers, and I see the same similarities where if you have J.J. Watt and Clowney on the same side, who are you blocking? You can't double team the same side.
Exactly.
You can't.
Exactly.
And
it's gonna be nerve-wracking for offensive coordinators to figure it out, especially on a passing down. If you have both of those guys, you cannot block J.J. Watt one-on-one. We have already learned that from the 3 years that J.J. Watt has been playing in the NFL. You cannot block him one-on-one. Jadeveon Clowney taking one-on-ones is also a mismatch. That also means tight ends are blocking him. Possibly, if he's stunting, he's facing slower guards who don't have as quick a twitch as him. He's going to be free to do whatever he wants. You're going to have to choose to take away one of them, and it usually ends up that both of them end up destroying your game plan. If you can't decide on which one to take away. If you decide J.J. Watt is going to be the guy I'm going to take away, well, Clowney's going to be hitting your quarterback a lot, and you really don't want that. It's going to be a hard time stopping both of those guys. I mean, quarterback, yeah, we understand that, but why? You can find developmental quarterbacks in this class, though. It's not an awful class. It's not 2013. I'm not trying to bash 2013's class. There's still probably going to be a few quarterbacks that may come out of there, but as far as this draft,
There isn't a
Jimmy
top
Garoppolo
definitive.
is not a bad guy. Another guy they might even be able to be interested is maybe even AJ McCarron. I'm not an AJ McCarron guy, but there's qualities in him too that I'm starting to see now a little bit more so than when I was first evaluating.
Right. And one last thing I'm going to add on WalterFootball.com, there is meetings by teams on players they have met with. The Houston Texans have met with Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Zach Mettenberger. Those are the quarterbacks.
And of course, they're trying to do their homework and due diligence to make sure that they have the right quarterback. But the tendency is probably going to be Blake Bortles. But if it was me, I'd go on ahead and take the pass rusher and take Jadeveon Clowney. So right now at number 1, we have Blake Bortles.
Right. And also to note about the meetings, Blake Bortles has met with the team 3 different times, and Jimmy Garoppolo has also met with the Texans 3 different times in 2 private workouts. So there we go. And now we go to the second overall pick, the Rams, who owned this pick thanks to the Washington Redskins. Now,
this is pretty much right now what the Rams are working with is house money. The likely thing that the St. Louis Rams will likely do is probably trade out of this because they're playing with house money. This was not supposed to be their pick. They weren't the second worst team in the NFL, were they? I don't believe so.
No, they were.
The Washington Redskins were.
Right.
They were the ones who blew it, and they're playing with house money. Pretty much right now is they're getting all this stuff from the RG3 pick. Why not benefit from getting extra picks right there? That's probably what they're likely going to do, and probably what they're what I think they should do. What the conventional thinking would be. They also have. Could we get to the needs?
Yeah, go to the needs. What are the top 3 needs for the St. Louis Rams?
St. Louis, obviously, the number 1 need. Everybody thinks it's offensive line. I think it's that back end of their defense because they did let go of Cortland Finnegan, I believe, today.
Yeah, he tweeted out.
Cortland Finnegan was not Cortland Finnegan of Tennessee. Tennessee's Cortland Finnegan, physical guy. He's not that guy anymore. He's a little bit more washed up. He belongs a little bit more, being that veteran leader, that helps with depth. He's no longer the outside corner that he has. Janoris Jenkins, he's been holding it down. TJ McDonald struggled a little bit, but we also saw a lot of promise. Rodney McLeodin?
Yeah, who's that?
McLeodin, the free safety. He was a free safety for them. He was off. That's the reason why St. Louis was giving up big plays after big plays. It was because of him, and of course TJ McDonald. He struggled a little bit too because he's a rookie, like a lot of them. And obviously they're gonna maybe try to transition from Cortland Finnegan to Tremaine Johnson, who they took a few years. The same year that Janoris came out, I believe it was 2012.
Yeah, he came from Montana.
Janoris came out in 2012. He was a 3rd-round pick. Tremaine Johnson was a 3rd-round pick. Janoris Jenkins was a 2nd-round pick. They envisioned one day that both of these 2 guys would probably become their starters. The big physical corner probably can't play nickel. Where they played him a year ago, which I thought was it looked really odd because he can't cover the slot wide receivers. Tremaine Johnson, he's an outside corner. He's a little bit big. They might try him out for a year, but definitely secondary is definitely their number 1 need. Number 2, I would say the tackle position. I'm not convinced in Joe
Barksdale,
and Jake Long, because Jake Long, he's a great left tackle. He can't stay healthy anymore. He's still 29 years old. You can convince yourself that, okay, we can get him healthy and all of that type of stuff, but do you really want to be in a Houston Texans predicament a few years back with Tony Boselli?
Yeah.
And you're waiting for a guy to keep getting healthy, and he can't get healthy, and your quarterback keeps getting beaten, and eventually he's a broken item, because that's what ended up happening to David Carr.
Yeah, I see a O-line help, and then the number 3.
Yeah, that's also definitely a need. Wide receiver is also a need, but I would not address it in the first round or even in the first 2 days, because I'm hearing all this Sammy Watkins talk, but I'm like, if I took off for a second, I really thought of this one, I took off for a second, as trying to play GM. I'm the owner of the St. Louis Rams. We drafted Tavon Austin in the first round. We drafted Stedman Bailey in the third round. We drafted the year before that Brian Quick in the second round. We drafted Austin Pitts in the third round. We keep on using all these premium picks on wide receivers, and we're not getting it right. And I hired Jeff Fisher to build a physical football team, not to become the greatest show on turf.
Right.
And stack up on wide receivers. Chris Givens, he's also was a fourth round pick, but he's kind of developed a little bit better than a fourth round pick. I mean, you've invested a lot on wide receivers the last few years, and these young wide receivers haven't quite developed. Okay, what's going on here? You know, I'm going to start asking: is our department just can't evaluate wide receivers right? Because we're picking another one in the first round again. You know, and that's why I don't think that they should address it at all, because it's sending a bad message. Maybe go grab yourself a veteran wide receiver to teach these young wide receivers. It might not be the best wide receiver, maybe even like a Nate Burleson type, you know? Somebody who's a veteran who's going to teach the younger guys how to be a better wide receiver, teach them their craft, teach them how to run routes, you know? It's the wide receiver's coach job to do that, but you also would like to have somebody who shows them how it's done. The wide receiver coach can tell them how it's done. You need somebody who needs to show them how it's done. It's a need, but I would rather address it in free agency than rather so there. And of course, I think an underrated one, like need also is maybe quarterback. You might want somebody to come in there and push Sam Bradford. I'm not talking about take a quarterback in the first round or take one in the second round. Maybe in the latter portions of the round, a developmental guy, maybe a Logan Thomas, I'm thinking.
Right.
Yeah, a big arm guy who's going to come in there and he's going to physically challenge him. And Sam Bradford, everybody's going to be like, whoa, watch out for your job, because this guy might be able to take. Because Sam Bradford, we're going to have to start lighting a fire under him. Because if he doesn't get it done, we might have to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
Sam Bradford's one of the highest rated players I've ever evaluated.
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to win games or stay healthy.
Yeah, he's been, and he was also the last rookie to get that big paycheck, the rookie wage scale.
No, he's the last one of the rookies to get the paycheck. That's another point there. That's the reason why that you gotta get up there. St. Louis also has a need at running back, but it's more so for a backup. Zach Stacy's fine. He's probably a 1,000-yard runner every year. You probably need a backup running back at some point, because behind Zach Stacy. I look at the St. Louis Rams running back situation. Darrell Richardson, he's more so like a third string or a fourth string. Isaiah P, special teams guy. You need a backup running back. Zach Stacy, it would be beneficial to go with a 1-2 combination.
Right, and so let's get to it. The second overall pick for the Rams should be?
Or where they're going?
Both. We'll do where they're going. What do you think the Rams are going with? Well, Blake Bortles was taken first, so there may be teams chiming in to get Jadeveon Clowney. Jump.
Yeah, I know. That's the reason why I said that the trade would make a lot of sense. But if they were if they were able to pass up and they cannot trade, because we're doing a mock draft, obviously, right?
Yeah, we'll not do trades. We'll just say
we're not going to be allowed to trade. So why not take Jadeveon Clowney? They're going to end up taking Jadeveon Clowney against conventional thinking.
Right.
They're going to hoard pass rushers in there because, first, the thing about it is Chris Long, his contract is going to be fat. He's going to be taking in a lot of money. His contract is big. Robert Quinn, he's due a lot of money. One of those two guys are not going to be around. And Jadeveon Clowney, could you imagine a combination of speed with Robert Quinn in one end and Jadeveon Clowney on the other end, and they could flip-flop each side. One might play right in, one down. The other might play left in on each down. It would be a real hard thing. And then the first year, you can easily move in Jadeveon Clowney in. And I think that's where they would be leaning to. Even though I think everybody thinks that offensive line would be there. But if there was to go to an offensive line, like for myself, like on my pick, I would think that they would go offensive line because
yeah, they need help. Joe Barksdale.
That offensive lineman, obviously, Jake Long can't get it. And the ties right now tells you that even though that Greg Robinson's my number one offensive tackle, the ties tell you Jake Matthews is their guy.
Right.
And on Texas A&M's pro day, like I read about it, like I didn't get to hear, but that's the reason why I was talking to you about earlier about Texas A&M pro day and Johnny Manziel not working out or anything like that. But the guy who was doing his drills for him, like was drilling Jake Matthews, was the offensive line coach of the St. Louis Rams.
Yep. And
that tells you that they might have more interest in him. And you also got to remember, Jeff Fisher knows knows Matthews for a long time.
Bruce Matthews, yeah.
He played with his dad in college.
Yeah, USC ties.
His dad
in Tennessee.
In the pros.
Yeah.
In the NFL.
So
he's known Matthews for a long time. He's seen his development, and I could really picture that happening. That's probably the second scenario behind Jadeveon Clowney. I know everybody has Greg Robinson over him, but the St. Louis Rams, Jeff Fisher, I just can't ignore the ties. Ties have proven to be right a lot of times. And the ties right now says that Jake Matthews would actually be the number 2 pick, more so than Greg Robinson.
Right.
So right now, my number 2 pick would be Jadeveon Clowney. Right. That's where I think that they would lean more so if they had to pick their guy.
And now
they're playing with house money. If this is not their pick.
If I was,
why not just add a better player and then with your own pick, take your need.
Right. And we'll get to the Rams' second pick on another day. They'll be in the next 8 picks. But if I were a betting man, I would bet that they would trade this pick on the day.
Yes, it's kind of the one that it was. And they don't have to ask for the king ransom that they asked for the RG3 play. Like,
they're probably
first rounders.
They'll probably be
first rounders. What was it? 3 first rounders now?
3 first rounders and a whole bunch of
first rounders, a second rounder, and they're not gonna ask for all of that.
They're just probably gonna be like flip. They'll probably ask to like switch picks.
They'll probably ask maybe give us a first rounder for next year and a second rounder or a third rounder next year or this year.
Yeah.
Maybe Atlanta wants to move in same spot. Atlanta was sitting at as Washington was, and St. Louis was sitting in the same spot as they were in 2012. You just kind of like, okay, we're gonna add another pick, a few more picks, and maybe even try to move in and probably get a third first rounder, like on my draft scenario. Mock draft that I had on my YouTube page.
Right. And so now we'll go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And their 3 biggest needs are
quarterback, pass rusher, and probably they still need help in the interior. They definitely need help in that defensive line.
Right.
Whether it be end or at defensive tackle.
Now, let's get to it. What do you think they're going to go with, and who do you think they should go with?
What I think that they're going to go with, Jacksonville right now is probably the team that's, like we said, St. Louis is the most likely to trade out of the top 5. Jacksonville is the least likely to trade in the entire draft because they're going to be sitting pretty here. So, you're going to have at least 2 of the 3 quarterbacks. Only one quarterback's going to be taken maybe. Jadeveon Clowney is still going to be sitting there. So you need both of them.
Right.
What I think that they'll end up going with, since Jadeveon Clowney has been taken and Blake Bortles has been taken, they say that they don't really are infatuated with Teddy Bridgewater. They don't really like Teddy Bridgewater. From all reports have said that they really don't like Teddy Bridgewater that much. And I'm only taking that stuff with a grain of salt. I think they're going to end up going with Johnny Manziel. Mm-hmm. They're going to need somebody to make a spark out there. There's not a lot of playmakers. Justin Blackmon is suspended for a few games. How many games?
I think it's probably 4, maybe 2. I don't know the exact.
Yeah, he's suspended for a few games. They're going to need somebody who's going to just straight make raw plays and survive through it, because Gus Bradley, he might not get another shot at this,
Yeah, he may not get another shot at being a head coach.
I know, at being a head coach. He's got to get it right now, because Jacksonville's a disaster, and they keep bypassing quarterback like they did last year. and they've already shown that they don't care for if the quarterback fits or not. And there's rumors that Michael Vick might be their guy.
Yeah, and
there's also rumors that Michael Vick could be their guy. They might go with Michael Vick. If they go with Michael Vick, then I think Khalil Mack would be obviously the guy probably be looking for it. Khalil Mack or Jadeveon Clowney.
All right.
But I would have to give him right now Johnny Manziel. What I think that they should do is go Khalil Mack.
Right.
At this point, sitting there, because if you don't like none of the quarterbacks, don't take them.
Yeah, don't get something you don't like. Just because you need it, don't get something you don't like.
You need quarterback, because that's what ends up happening. The teams like what Minnesota ended up doing. Did they really like Christian Ponder all that much where they were willing to pick him at number 12?
No. They just needed a quarterback.
Tells you no, because nobody rated Christian Ponder that high, and it blew my mind when they took Christian Ponder.
Yeah, that was a surprise in the draft, big time.
Yeah, like, do you really want to take a quarterback that you don't feel comfortable with, or you can just take a player who you really believe that you can need, and then pass rush is still a need, and Khalil Mack I think would be you think a 3-4 would be his perfect fit? I think a 4-3 playing in Jacksonville type of system. Like Jacksonville, Gus Bradley, he comes from the Pete Carroll school. He uses that Leo, that stand-up outside linebacker. Khalil Mack would be ideal. Like when I imagine a perfect Leo end, it's Khalil Mack.
Yeah, Khalil Mack is looking really good. He's getting wonderful reviews from everybody. Everybody's on, and credit to him, he deserves it. But I like Khalil Mack. I think that would be perfect for the fit. I think it would probably be Johnny Manziel to the Jacksonville Jaguars because of the need. But I would like Khalil Mack would be a nice fit out. It's a good fit for them too. So let's go with the number 4 overall pick, the disaster that is called the Cleveland Browns.
Cleveland is closer than people are giving them credit for.
That is true. They're kind of getting on disaster because their owner's having problem with the FBI and his old.
And they can't get it right in the front office. But as far as personnel, they're closer than what people think that they are. They're not a horrible team.
They have very good pieces.
Talent there. They have key pieces, but they have a lot of holes also.
So let's go.
Every bottom of the tier team, there's a reason why they're picking in the top 5 year in and year out. They do have holes on their team, But talent could only get you so far if you don't have the consistency up front in the front office. I think the front office is hiding kind of how good this team can possibly be. They have a lot of resources this year. They should come away and say that this is the draft that we turn it around. This is going to be the core group because Cleveland has to be the year that they're going to be, because if it's not this one, then this coaching staff is probably going to be gone too. It has to be this draft.
Yeah, I mean, the coaching staff already was kind of questionable. I mean, they hired a guy that most of us didn't know who he was unless we really know football a lot.
I kind of knew who he was.
Yeah.
Mike Pettine.
Yeah, he was the defensive coordinator for the Bills.
I remember seeing him in Hard Knocks. He was Rex Ryan's handy boy.
Yeah, but most people.
He coached for Buffalo last year. I looked it up. I didn't even remember what team he was on last year.
Yeah, he was the defensive coordinator for the.
It caught me by surprise because this wasn't their first choice or the second choice. It was like number 16 on their choices of coaches.
Yeah, I mean, and then so the people don't.
Every coach was like turning them down. They even at a point was rumors that they were willing to trade 2 first-round picks for Jim Harbaugh. And the 49ers were ready to agree with it, but Jim Harbaugh had to agree with it, and he said no.
I mean, yeah, can you imagine the 49ers, first of all, getting 3 first-round picks, and one of them's in the top 5, and you already have a damn good team? Like, that's pretty scary,
That was a rumor. We got to take that maybe with a grain of salt. Maybe, sometimes the media blows things out. Maybe there was just a phone call that just happened. And it just got leaked out, It was just a phone call because people offer crazy trades all the time. I'm pretty sure in front offices they offer you Seneca Wallace for Aaron Rodgers in a first round pick,
Right, and
they call each other all the time, and
They
try
just
to
see
make
if
it
anything will go down. But
if they're willing to do that type of thing.
yeah, so what are the top 3 needs for this team?
Cleveland, they're in need for an inside linebacker. That's probably the
Yeah,
number
after
one
the news
thing.
today,
After they just lost that, it's on the top of your head right now. They also need quarterback. Brandon Wheaton.
Brian Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer could maybe start a year, but I don't think it's a long-term solution. Jason Campbell, he's a good backup, but I don't ever really want him to be my starting quarterback. His best years are really behind him, and it was really a best year. And it was a half a year in Oakland. That's probably the only time I ever really saw great promise in Jason Campbell.
Right. And so, yeah.
And they also have need maybe for a little bit for safety as well too, and helping the interior of the offensive line. They have a few needs there as well too, and of course running back. They're the team with the least talent at running back.
They lost. Yeah, they traded away Trent Richardson.
They traded away Trent Richardson, which ended up looking. Hindsight right now looks like it was a good move.
Yeah, that would look really smart on their part to me.
Yeah, that they got a first-round pick for a running back. That's kind of questionable right now. He hasn't been living up to.
Yeah, when he went to the Colts, I mean, he looked like he was getting the second string because Donald Brown was the guy carrying the team.
Yeah, because he wasn't running good. I mean, the guy was averaging like 2 yards a carry. He'd run right, because I went on Twitter and asked everybody, what is wrong with Trent Richardson? He has every talent in the book that says this should be an all-pro running back. Why is he getting 2 yards a carry?
Exactly.
He has bad vision. He's running right into it, and he's running right into contact. This isn't Alabama versus Mississippi. You're not going to run over everybody. You got to find the hole and attack it, and he hasn't been able to do that.
Right.
I still like Trent Richardson. I still think that there's hope. He just needs to get with the right running back coach in the system that he belongs. I think he's fixable.
Right.
But going back to the Cleveland Browns, they also need a running back. That's probably their biggest, like glaring hole that there's no way that they don't walk away from draft
without drafting one,
without a running back. Even if they do sign Ben Tate, like everybody's rumoring them to.
Yeah, and plus also they also have the second highest, money to spend this free agency. Mm-hmm. So they, from here till draft.
But the thing about spending money on free agency is necessarily it's not maybe guys that really want to go on your team. They're like, okay, why would I want to go to the Cleveland Browns where our coach is going to get fired? We're going to maybe have another crap year, and then I'm going to start getting less carries, and I'm going to end up getting,
right,
crap or something like that. Because success goes with winning. If you're not winning, you're less likely to keep your job. There's few guys that are able to keep their job because they're just play on that high of a level that even if they're losing, they still got their job. Like Joe Thomas, for an example. He's been losing all these years, but he's been the one constant for the Cleveland Browns.
Right. But
the other guys, they've been cutting them, and they've been letting them go because you're not winning. They're like, well, he's part of the problem. He's part of the problem. Braylon Edwards, he's part of the problem. This guy, he's part of the problem. And you can't keep the same roster or continuity. Continuity is important, even with players, as much as it is with the front office.
Right. And so let's get to it. Who do you think they should go with, and who do you think they will pick?
The reports is very similar to what I think that they will end up doing as well. The reports is that they don't like the previous Michael Lombardi, that was their general manager, the NFL Network guy, right?
Yeah.
He was their general manager. They said that guy loved Johnny Manziel. But the reports is now that that the Cleveland Browns really don't like Johnny Manziel. It might be smokescreen. It might be early, but I'm thinking this. Even if you end up with Johnny Manziel at quarterback, besides Josh Gordon and Cameron Jordan, who's really the weapons that he has?
I mean,
Greg Little has not been proven to be that. You talk about hands of stone. Greg Little has hands of stone. He drops a lot of passes. You don't have much of a running back. You don't have a bunch of explosive players. But could you imagine a wide receiver combo of Josh Gordon, who right now I think is going to end up becoming a top 5 wide receiver, pretty soon. He's in the fringe of it. And then you have Sammy Watkins.
And then Cameron or Jordan
Jordan at tight end.
Yeah.
Who can move around, who's a mismatch. He reminds me of Antonio Gates.
Yeah. And Brian Hoyer.
Jordan Cameron, not Cameron Jordan. Cameron Jordan's a Saints defensive end.
Yeah,
Jordan Cameron.
I remember
the same thing.
I remember in the draft of that year draft, they actually got those names switched up. One team got both their names switched up, and the wrong prospect came to the team.
Yeah.
And then that was funny, and also.
Yeah. I've actually sometimes called Cameron Jordan Cameron, and Jordan Cameron Jordan. They have the same name. They came out in the same draft.
And
Cal guy.
Yeah, and by the way, they're rivals when they were and they weren't like one went to the SEC. No, one went to USC and one went to Cal. Yeah. But anyways, I would think if the Browns go Sammy Watkins, Brian Hoyer is going to be happy coming back from rehabilitation because he has Sammy Watkins, Josh Gordon, and Cameron Jordan. Now, I probably think they are probably going to address quarterback. If they do go with Sammy, I feel like they'll probably get a quarterback with that second pick in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And
then they even have an early first round pick in the second round.
Exactly.
They're a team, like, even in my scenario mock draft, I had them having 3 first round picks because they're going to end up, there's a possibility that Cleveland could even slide back a little bit with that second first round pick, just a few picks, and then try to move back up again. And they have enough ammo. They have like 3 third-round picks. They have enough ammo to move up.
As
a bunch of draft picks. They have. This is the time when you can go get a whole bunch of blue chip guys in a deep draft, and you have a whole bunch of draft picks. This thing kind of was like set up for them to succeed this year. Like this is going to be their core group of their turnaround. 2012 was Seattle's year, when they added Bobby Wagner, Bruce Irvin, and Russell Wilson.
Right.
That's what made them turn around. That was the draft class that turned them around. Cleveland Brown has the same opportunity in this draft, but they might go with a different scenario where they go with 3 first-round picks and they make it.
As like the Minnesota Vikings just did the year before, how the Minnesota Vikings got Cordell Patterson, Xavier Rhodes, and Sharif Floyd all in the first round.
They had enough ammo. Cleveland has enough ammo to end up with 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, and they can go a whole bunch of different ways. Now let's get to the...
and you can address a lot of those needs.
And let's get to the 5th pick, which is the Oakland Raiders. And seemingly, they always end up in this scenario picking first, picking in the top 10. So, what are the 3 biggest needs for the Raiders?
The Raiders, obviously, a quarterback is still a need. Terrell Pryor showed a little bit of promise, but it's not enough progression at this point. He's in year 4. Cameron Newton and Colin Kaepernick and all those other guys have already developed. He's not an expensive player. He was picked in the supplemental draft in the 3rd round. He's not going to be expensive. You can get rid of him if you need to, or keep him as a backup. Either way, even if he develops into the quarterback that a lot of us hoped he could become, he's still on the roster. He's not getting paid a whole bunch of things. He's not getting paid
much at all. He's not taking any cap space at all.
Yeah.
And good thing for the Raiders also is they have a lot of money to spend too. So they're willing to.
They're also going to need a running back because Darren McFadden is gone, and I believe Rashard Jennings is gone too. Is a free agent.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to bring back Darren McFadden.
They're looking. They
also need help at defensive line. They did not franchise Lamar Houston like I thought they might do.
Right.
You're going to need help. You're going to need help on the defensive line from every position on down. The linebacker core is pretty weak. You could still need help at safety. I wouldn't put too much investment at corner because you've already invested in DJ Hayden.
Right.
And Chenade Chekwa showed some promise, especially like early.
Right, early in his career, yeah. And now let's get to the picks. Now, we already have first pick was, to recap for everybody, first pick was Blake Bortles, Texans. Second pick was Jadeveon Clowney to the Rams. Third pick was Johnny Manziel to the Jaguars. Fourth is Sammy Watkins to the Browns. And fifth, right now, Raiders. Who do you think they're tending to, and who do you think they should take?
The person that I would think that they would be leaning towards, even though that they say that they like Derek Carr and they don't like Johnny Manziel, and that's all everybody's talking about in Oakland as well too, because but the person I think that they're going to be really aiming for, if this guy falls there, it would be Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, and that's looking
This would be a dream scenario for Greg Olson because he fits his system. Greg Olson's system, the offensive coordinator of the Oakland Raiders, it kind of fits his system and what he's trying to really do. And with the rollouts, bootlegs, he does the same a lot of things. He throws in a lot of West Coast stuff. And Teddy Bridgewater would be an ideal West Coast type of quarterback, similar to Aaron Rodgers, who I've compared him numerous times. Like, everybody knows if you follow me, everybody knows my infatuation with comparing Teddy Bridgewater and Aaron Rodgers. They're very similar in their games, and I could see where there is. But there is maybe a little bit of a hope right now on Teddy Bridgewater, more so less because of his size, but because of his hand size, less so of his physical height or weight, because he came in relatively decent quarterback height. 6'2", 200 and I want to say 17 plus pounds. It's like 220, I think.
Yeah,
he came in with that size. He came in with regular, quarterback size that you would expect. Same size as about Aaron Rodgers, but his hand size is probably the thing that's bothering you because, and there's a truth to this that hand size does matter. Quarterbacks that have bigger hand size, tend to not fumble as much. Like, if you look up the stats, the bigger hands tend to fumble less. Peyton Manning has big hands. He doesn't fumble less. And it's easier also to pump fake. There's a reason why Teddy Bridgewater wore gloves.
Right.
Because of it's harder for him to grip the football.
Now, seeing this as a dream scenario, you probably think the best fit for them would be Teddy Bridgewater?
Yes.
So
it'd also be the same thing, same reasoning, same thing. I think that the Oakland Raiders will make the right move and they will go with Teddy Bridgewater.
Right. Now let's get to the sixth pick, which is Atlanta is kind of a team that had a bad year, but they're not really a team that's bad on paper. Maybe they're actually one player away from, because that NFC South, has had three different leaders each year. We had the Panthers this year. Last year was the Falcons.
They always have a different leader, whether it's New Orleans. No one has, since the division that came together in 2002, no one has won the division back to back.
Right.
Even when the Saints won the Super Bowl, they came back the next year. They did not win the division. Tampa Bay, they won the Super Bowl. They did not win the division. Carolina went to the Super Bowl. They did not win the division the next year. It's always a different division winner every single time.
So
it's never been the same team twice.
If you're a Buccaneers fan or if you're a Falcons fan, this could be your year to bounce back, and you may be the best record in your division. So let's get to it. The top three needs for the Falcons.
Obviously, they don't have the offensive line is a need, but especially in the interior. The outside, Sam Baker, I don't know why they haven't given up on him, but they haven't given up on him. I'm a USC fan and all, but the guy can't stay healthy. He's good when he's playing, but he's not ever playing. So what's really the point of having a guy who can't stay healthy? They also need help at tight end. Everybody knows
Tony Gonzalez
is retired now. They need help at running back. That offense is need. Their OCU Manura was pretty much their only pass rusher last year.
They missed John Abraham big time.
Yeah, John Abraham's gone now, and he's in Arizona.
So
you need that pass rusher at this point, and you've obviously, hopefully, hoping Robert Alford is going to get a little bit better, and you might want to add a nickel now because Robert Alford moving from nickel to starting corner, which we're going to see. We're going to see if he can make that, and then that secondary sealed after that. That's probably their strength, and outside of that, they're pretty much in need of all the positions on defense. Defense is definitely the way to go.
Right, they're pretty set on offense with the
quarterback.
quarterback.
They're pretty set on offense. The thing that really hurt Atlanta was the injuries, and then they maintained a little bit, and then it all collapsed on them when Julio Jones went down. When Julio Jones went down, everybody just said, we're going to stop Rodney White. Steven Jackson is not here, and we're not going to – and their offensive line is pretty much a patchwork offensive line, and we're going to beat down on Matt Ryan.
Right, and then
their game plan was take away Rodney White and beat down on Matt Ryan, and it worked. And we see that they're picking in the top 10.
Right. So who do you think they're going to go with?
But at this point,
who do you think they're going with?
At this point, they're sitting pretty. They're sitting pretty because I believe Khalil Mack is still on the board, right?
Yeah, Khalil Mack is still there.
Khalil Mack is still sitting on the board. Anthony Barr is still sitting on the board. And then Greg Robinson, everybody's consensus #1 offensive tackle prospect, is sitting on the board. And then you still have even if you wanted to move back, you still have Taylor Lewan. They're sitting pretty right now. I'm going to give them Greg Robinson. I'm going to end the slide and give them Greg Robinson.
Right. And do you feel that's what they think they're going with, or that's who you think they should go with?
That's more so who I think that they will end up going with. Who they should go with? I would probably say the same thing too. It would have to be Greg Robinson. I would love them to take Khalil Mack here. You need pass rushers, but Matt Ryan, you paid him all that much money. You want him to keep getting beaten like that, to a pulp? No, Sam Baker can't stay healthy. I'm done with him.
Right. Now, we go to a divisional rival. There's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here.
To me, I feel like with the hire of Lovie Smith, I feel like that team.
They're trying to get back to winning Tampa Bay 2002, early 2000s, late 90s.
And this is, to me, I thought this was the perfect fit for a coach to a team because he's a Tampa guy. One, he was there with Tony Dungy. He ran the Tampa
2 into Tampa Bay, which they haven't ran in like 7 years.
Right, and then he ran the Tampa Bay consistently and won with it, gone to a Super Bowl with it, has gone to NFC Championship games to it. To this day, I didn't understand why they fired Lovie Smith, but he's a great hire.
Because it became too much of the same old story.
Yeah.
And people got kind of bored with him. You take people for granted sometimes.
Right.
If you get a consistent coach that's always winning, but you're not getting to that Super Bowl, you start hearing him out and saying, hey, maybe it's his fault, the reason why we haven't made that step. And Chicago may have got rid of him a little too quickly. Right.
And Lovie Smith, I mean, he has very good young pieces here on this defense. He has the linebacker of Nebraska, David.
Monte David.
He has Darrell Revis at corner.
I don't think that's a fit.
And I've heard that they are shopping him to be traded for maybe a first rounder.
Nobody's going to give up a first round.
Probably it's going to be a second round pick, if not some players with the pick or future.
And Darrell Revis is also has a boatload of money. And the word is that maybe Darrell Revis is the one that's leaking out these rumors that he wants to be traded. That the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are shopping him. Darrell Revis' agent.
Yeah, and then they have Anthony McCoy, a very good defensive tackle, and they also have Mark Barron. Gerald McCoy, yeah. And they also have a very good safety at Mark Barron.
And then you have you spent money on Deshaun Golston.
Yeah.
Jonathan Banks showed some promise. You also have Mason Foster.
And also the other corner, Johnson from, I believe it was Iowa State. He showed.
Yeah, Leonard Johnson.
Yeah. So.
And Jonathan Banks, both of those guys are young cornerbacks that show some promise.
But
you have pieces. Banks it fits this defense. So does Leonard Johnson. I could see Darrell Revis being traded easily here. They have pieces on that defense, but it's not there yet. Because the reason why it's not there yet is because they don't have a pass rush.
Right. They don't have.
This defense didn't get a lot of pass rush outside of Gerald McCoy.
Right. They don't have another tackle. They don't have. They don't have another defensive ends. Like
Adrian Claiborne has not lived up to expectations. Neither has Daquan Bowers.
No.
William Golston is probably more of a depth guy.
Right, and so let's the top three needs will for the Bucks are
Obviously, number one, like I said, defensive, defensive line. You can go either defensive end or defensive tackle. Gerald McCoy is the only defensive lineman that gives you any sort of pressure. Um, you also, the probably the biggest need on offense is probably not the offensive line. It's probably tight end. Mike Glennon, you might want to bring in your own quarterback just to see, if you might be able to there, if he's not really their guy, because I could see Mike Glennon not succeeding in Jeff Tedford's offense because it's all about fundamentals and feet work. We all remember the old Cal.
I mean, Jeff Tedford, he is a very good offensive coordinator, very good quarterback guru.
Yeah, guru, but like he likes fundamentals.
Fundamental guys, and I don't think
fundamentals. And Mike Glennon, that might not be his cup of tea because he's big arm. Let me launch it. Let me do everything with my arm. Type of a quarterback.
Right.
So yeah, but tight end is definitely a hole. They're gonna have to address at some point between the first 3 rounds. Probably not this early because there's still a bunch of guys who are still sitting there that's really, really good. And
right.
What I think.
So, yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Who do you think they're taking?
What I think is going to end up happening, it might not be a schematic fit here, but I think Leslie Frazier and Lovie Smith realize that good defensive players are good defensive players. Good pass rushers are good pass rushers, and they're going to end the free fall for Khalil Mack. They're going to take Khalil Mack here.
Right. That'll be
finally give them that pass rush.
I think that'll be a nice. I mean, I understand how it doesn't fit like their scheme, but
their scheme, yeah, because it's a Tampa 2. He's not going to get to fully use his coverage skills. He's not going to really. They're going to have to almost ask him to put his hand down and become a true defensive end.
But like you said, if you're a great defensive player, you'll make great defensive plays.
Great defensive players make great defensive plays. If you're a good pass rusher, you're a good pass rusher. It might not use him to all his talents, but it'll use him for most of his talents. And his best thing is still to rush the quarterback. And I think Khalil Mack would be the guy here. He's maybe not the mold that they were looking for, but yeah. Another guy that I think that I would like them to consider is to move back, because it's a little bit of a reach right now, but Aaron Donald would be a perfect fit with them.
Oh, yeah.
Aaron Donald and Gerald McCoy in the interior, it'd be the Warren Sapp days all over again.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, Warren Sapp. I mean, there's a lot of people who've liked Aaron Donald.
And Booker McFarland. McFarland was underrated.
Right.
Gerald McCoy might be Warren Sapp. McFarland might be Donald,
Yeah, I see. Which, again, with that.
You can see that, and they'll be able to get pressure from the interior. The outside guys, you can get them later on, but I could see them trading back. But if they were also able to stick back, I would also like them to consider maybe taking an offensive tackle as well, too, because Donald Penny's probably past his prime at this point. He's not the same offensive lineman that he used to be, but you've already invested a lot of money in offensive line with Carl Nix a year ago and Gavin Joseph. He's pretty good at guard. You got 2 Pro Bowl quality guys there, so I could see them sticking around with pretty much on the defensive side because they're going to try to win these championships or try to get to a Super Bowl by building their team through defense.
Right, and then the last pick for today, the Minnesota Vikings. They're sitting.
Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Needs first? That's what we're going with?
Yeah. What are the top three needs for this team?
Quarterback. I would say pass rusher and linebacker.
Right. So we have so far. This is the last pick for today. The last pick we just had was we went with Khalil Mack went to the Buccaneers. Who was he? Greg Robinson to Atlanta, Teddy Bridgewater to Oakland, and Sammy to Browns, Johnny Manziel to the Jaguars, and then Clowney, and then Bortles. So we have Anthony Barr here. We have We could see the first DB taken here. There's been a lot.
That's also a need for them because uh, Xavier Rhodes was pretty good in his small time showing. He wasn't healthy all the way this year, but they invested a first round pick. They got to see what he's all about. Josh Robinson is talented, but his speed has not translated into his athletic ability has not translated in him to becoming a really good corner.
Right. Yeah.
He might be better suited for just maybe playing on special teams and being a fourth corner, And they didn't invest a whole bunch on him, but he's a really talented player. That at some point you were hoping maybe he would have become a star in the NFL. He has not developed into that yet. And obviously, linebacker, we know that they only have one linebacker. Like they had no middle linebacker. They cut their middle linebacker this year. They have no weak side linebacker. Gerald Hodges is not starting linebacker. It's pretty much Chad Greenway, and it's been that way for like the past 3 years. And they've neglected the position for a while, and then Jared Allen's gone.
Yeah, Jared Allen's on his way out. I mean, sorry Vikings fans, but Jared Allen is
probably not coming back, and he's already past his prime, and he's trying to get back to being on a team with a winning team. He left Kansas City. He never got to be a free agent. This is his time. He's a little bit older. He's probably not going to get paid as much money, but he's still a person I would still be considering there. And pass rusher, but there's a chance that they could bring back Everson Griffin.
Right. And he's all right pass rusher. He's not Jared Allen.
See, he's not Jared Allen, but he's also been in that rotation, and he's never really gotten to start. But when he played, he showed flashes. He showed that he could be a quality defensive end. I'd give him another shot.
Right.
Here, there's really we've already had Johnny Manziel taken. We've taken Blake Bortles, and we've had Teddy Bridgewater all taken. So this is probably going to be where Minnesota's going to be sitting. They're also a team that with St. Louis, even though it's a far way up, that would probably have to be a king's ransom to move all the way up to number 2 to grab a quarterback. They could be one of those teams that do it though.
Yeah, because sitting at 8 for them for their needs, it's kind of like they'll be reaching for players, kind of.
Yeah.
Picking Derek Carr at 8 will be a big time reach to me.
It would be a reach, and I don't know if he's necessarily a North Turner type of quarterback.
Right, and also picking Ely, the DN from Missouri, is kind of a reach here. There's a big drop off from Clowney to him.
But it fits to their defense though. There's a perfect candidate that's still sitting there that I would think that they would go with, and I would expect, and I think that they should go with, in Anthony Barr.
Yeah, Anthony Barr sitting there.
Anthony Barr would fit perfectly because Mike Zimmer is not afraid to put outside linebackers at pass rush to be outside linebackers.
Yeah.
Anthony Barr would have to be taught a little bit of more coverage because you're going to have to drop back a little bit more. But the Bengals last year with Mike Zimmer had what's that linebacker from the Steelers? James Harrison.
James Harrison
was on his defense. They're a traditional 43 team, but they're not kind of really because they have that Sam linebacker kind of, role because Chad Greenway would probably move to weak side linebacker on if he was there. They have that Sam linebacker, 2 out of the 3 downs he's rushing, and maybe 1 down he's probably, trying to help stop the run or drop back into coverage and play regular linebacker. Anthony Barr is probably going to have to be taught that, but I think he would be a good fit though because it would give you that pass rusher and it would help you at linebacker because it's both holes. Brian Robinson and Everson Griffin, okay, but none of them are Jared Allen. The one who might give you double-digit sacks might be the guy right there in Anthony Barr.
Right.
And you address 2 needs.
Right. And so that will wrap up for today's 8 picks. And we'll be back on another day, and we'll give you picks 9 through 16, I believe. That is Buffalo, Detroit, Tennessee, the Giants, the Rams, that's their second pick, the Bears, and that'll be it. No, and the Steelers, and the Cowboys. That will be our next 8 picks there. And you want to tease the listeners of anything exciting within those 8 picks? Is there something you think they won't see coming, or something that you believe will fit the team good that people don't project for the team?
Yeah, there's a few guys out there on that offensive line that a lot of people might not be hearing, but I've heard some buzz around. Also, more so for what I think that they should be. My conventional thinking is pretty much like majority of draft nicks at this point. But at the same time, what I think that they might do is a little bit more different than I think the others might, because there's an offensive lineman out there that I'm gonna put in there in the top 16 that most people might not agree with.
Well, you heard it there. So tune in next time to hear these next 9 through 16 picks and see what your favorite team picks. Until next time, this is Draft Day 101's special draft podcast.